Hi Luke, great to meet up with you as always at the range and do some further work on your game. A quick recap of the key points. Obviously it's the same sort of thing that we've revisited, but we made real good progress yesterday. We're starting to sort of single things out now a little bit more, and the key point for you here is to get back into flexion from P4 to P6. So it's a sequence of getting the flexing forward or the regaining of the flex in the right knee, the hips returning to the forward flex. That all happens from P4 to P5. And then the upper body getting back into the flex position so that we can start to push up off the ground from P6 onwards. So we've got to go down before we come back up. So we've extended to 0 on the way back. We then need to return to forward flexion before then pushing up and fully extending on the way through. And what we saw at the start of the session, I'll just play Charlie, we're back from P4 to P6. You can see that the left shoulder stays down, the right shoulder works down and around, and the head is staying pretty stable, or very stable at that point. As he does that, the club lines up nicely with the hands at P6. What we have here is a situation that we've seen before. We're pushing up off the ground, so we've extended to 0, and then we're going to extend beyond 0 as we start down. So we push up off the ground far too quick. The right knee never regains its flex and actually loses more flex from P4 to P5. The hips never get back into their forward tilt, 4 to 5. And the upper body is starting to extend and then hunches forward, coming through the golf ball to try and offset some of the extension that's gone before it. So just pushing up way too soon, club dropping very much on the inside. When we look at it from face on, we see a dramatic widening of the arc as you push up off the ground. And we did talk about this being chicken and egg scenario. You know, do you stand up because you throw the shaft away and dump the angles, or do you dump the angles because you stand up? And I think in your case, having watched your swing develop over the past few years, it's definitely the extending too early that creates this necessity to dump the angles. You can see there at P6, very, very wide, and release point way away from the golf ball. And this big gap here between the right bicep, if you will, the right elbow on the side. So what we've done here is, this is the exercise where we're trying to hit golf balls with as much flexion as possible. So the idea is to flex forward from P4 as much as possible, as soon as possible, just to try and break the habit that we saw up on the top left. You can see as you do that, flexing forward, the left shoulder stays down, the right shoulder works down and around more. The shaft is coming much more in line with the hands. You can see that the right knee regains some of its flex. The hips regain some of the flex. And the flexing forward starts to bring the club into a more in-line condition. Now from there we've got to learn to push up. We weren't asking you to do that at this stage, so there's a definite sort of continuation of that flex forward, and that's fine. It's just an exercise, just a drill to try and condition things. If we look at it from face on, flexing forward from P4 as much as possible, as soon as possible, you can see more pressure going into the lead leg. You can see the shaft not getting dumped quite as quick, because now there's no need to. You can see accumulator 4 starting to speed up, hence less of a gap between the right arm and the side, and a release point that's much nearer to the golf ball. As we continue that through, I'm just going to sync these swings up. We start to see a club from down the line approaching them from less underplane. And from face on, we're going to see a low point that's more forward, a handle location more forward, and a pretty good move through the ball from face on. Now again, from down the line, if we continued that on, there's too much flexing. But when you look at these together, the feeling is to flex forward as much as possible, as soon as possible, from P4 onwards. So from P4 max out to flex. This is a massive difference in those moves from 4 to 6. Tightening of the radius. More movement into the ground, allowing us to eventually learn to push up at the correct point. Remember what we said in the lesson. There's absolutely no problem with you pushing up out of the ground. It's something you're very good at. You do too much too soon, so we just need to spend a little bit of time doing the opposite. When you're doing this drill, fully expect to see pulls and cuts. Don't expect to see anything else. It'd be wrong to do so, and use it as an exercise. Use it as a training exercise. You should be doing a little bit of this every time you practice, because you can see there straight away the transition that you make, the path, if you will, of the left shoulder, the trajectory of the left shoulder, the path of the golf club, what the lower body does. It's completely different. So that graph we were talking about yesterday, you just change that graph from P4 to P6 very, very quickly whilst doing that drill. Keep up the good work, keep me posted, and I look forward to working with you throughout the winter months. Well done.